Thank you. Watching Morning Live, thank you for choosing to be with us. Now, though women are increasingly respected as professionals, very few hold leadership roles. The 21st century is an era in which the demand for women leaders greatly exceeds the supply. The world economy is faced with vastly different challenges than those which existed 20 years ago. Mentoring has become an accepted people development approach in the last few decades for both sexes. But for tangible progress to be made, women leaders must not underestimate their own power. And that's where our guest comes in this morning. She is the CEO of Busawa Leadership Partnership. And that, of course, is Dudu Msomi. Dudu, good morning. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
I want to touch on a couple of things. In the intro, we talk about that there is a great need for women leaders, and we've been talking about that in so many aspects, in so many different ways, around so many round tables. And yet, are we meeting that demand? Are we closer to supplying this demand we're talking about?
Globally, we're not. We are failing. So some countries have decided to have quotas, such as Norway, the Scandinavian countries mainly. So they've kind of reached 40 to 45%. But globally, we're just not doing well. South Africa has been better. In the public sector, we don't do that badly, but in the private sector, that's where the challenge is.
Let's talk about some of those challenges. What is it? Do we not have enough women?
That's what we say in terms of the demand is not being met. But it's also about the experience. What kind of experience do you need to have to be able to be afforded the opportunity to be in the leadership space? And every sector is different, every company is different, but there are just generic skills and qualifications you need to have. But it's also a matter of knowing where to look, because sometimes we don't network so much across the sexes. We still kind of keep in groups, which is why networking is so important. So it's because we tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, there's an opportunity for you. But even as South Africa, we haven't really been open country in terms of the diversity. We've always stayed within our race groups. Post 94, we are kind of forced to kind of integrate and know each other better. So if private sector has predominantly been the white people's domain, they now need to break their barriers in order to find women and also black people.
Let's talk about two things. Yesterday you had a conference which also dealt with leadership issues, but about a week ago you were part of the Global Mentoring Walk.
Yes.
That is all about mentoring and making sure that there's some kind of succession plan for women from one leadership to another. Talk to me very quickly about the Global Mentoring Walk and what the aim is.
It's part of the International Women's Day, which is the 8th of March. In terms of the mentoring walk itself, it was started by the CEO of Oxygen Media in the US because she found that there were so many women wanting to learn from her, but she didn't have the time. And we all find that same challenge. I mean, I have a lot of requests saying, can you please share? But you really have 24 hours in the day. So a mentoring walk is an opportunity where you have a day and an established leader is matched up with a mentee and you share experiences and you can continue that relationship. So some of the mentees that I've met during mentoring walks, I still keep a relationship with. And
what are some of the skills that you've now learned as a leader at the highest corporate level, now as a business owner, entrepreneur, that you can pass on to a mentee?
Yeah, it doesn't just come from my experience in terms of corporate, but it's your entire upbringing, your entire growth. I've always been a minority. Accent will tell you that, a minority in the majority space. I've always kind of been in a space where I'm the first African person or the first female. So you kind of share that because we have the issues of glass ceilings in most corporates where women can really, there's a barrier they seem not to be able to break through. So I'm able to share some of the insights because there are many unwritten rules in corporate as in anywhere else where you actually don't see where you're damaging yourself and why you're not growing. So you kind of share those insights. But the funny thing is, as a mentor, you also get to learn so much. Because there is young talent, younger than you sometimes.
Fresh ideas.
Fresh ideas, so you're also forced to think differently.
Very quickly, yesterday you had a conference and that looked at a whole range of issues with some very prominent speakers.
Yeah, we're looking at whether South Africa is losing its competitive edge. So we had the Minister of Finance, we had Fariel Hafiji of City Press talking about what can we fix in South Africa to regain our competitive edge. I spoke about self-leadership, because I think everything starts with us. I think in this country we focus a lot on what the politicians are doing and we get ourselves depressed, and it's up to us to kind of regain our own leadership and decide what we want South Africa to be.
Dudu, we've run out of time, but thank you very much for joining us. That is the CEO of Busawa Leadership Partners, Dudu Msomi, talking to us about not only the global mentoring work, but also the role that women play in helping each other through that glass ceiling, as she put it. We had a chat to her earlier. It's our first music